He answered every message, picked up every call, showed up for everyone even when he was tired, even when he was breaking inside. People loved having him around, not because they loved him, but because he made their lives easier. One day he stopped. No dramatic announcement, no anger, just silence. And suddenly they noticed. Not because they missed his voice, but because they missed their control over him. That was the day he realized being available all the time doesn't make you loved, it makes you used. So he vanished, and in his absence he met the version of himself he never knew existed. A man not afraid to be alone, a man whose peace was louder than his presence. Why availability is mistaken for weakness. In the human psyche, value is often tied to scarcity. The less available something is, the more people chase it. This is not just true for diamonds and gold, it's true for time, attention, and energy. When you're always there, always replying, always showing up, people start to assume you need them more than they need you. And that assumption, it's deadly. They begin to test boundaries, cancel plans last minute, stop replying for hours, or only reach out when they need something. Not because you changed, but because your constant availability made them comfortable enough to disrespect you. Let this sink in. People don't respect what they don't fear losing. Think about the last time someone truly valued you. Was it when you were always available? Or was it when you pulled away, focused on yourself, and made them wonder what changed? Human behavior is wired this way. We chase what runs, we ignore what stays. And when you're too kind, too giving, too open, they label you too much, too emotional, too needy. But the truth is, it was never about being too much. It was about being too present. Your kindness was your crime, your loyalty, your mistake in their eyes. But hear this, it's not your job to be available to people who are emotionally unavailable to you. The silent exit, a life-altering decision. It didn't happen all at once. There was no final argument, no dramatic door slam, no "I'm done with you" moment. Just silence. It began with ignoring a message or two, then skipping a call, then choosing peace over noise. And it felt strange at first, like losing a limb you'd grown used to, like silence was screaming louder than chaos ever did. But then, something shifted. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt free. The chaos you once normalized began to feel foreign. The fake laughs you forced yourself to give, they stopped. The need to explain, to prove, to be understood, disappeared. You walked away without burning bridges because you realized most bridges led nowhere. You didn't announce your absence. You just stopped being the one who always showed up. You watched the people you thought cared go quiet too. And in that quiet, you saw the truth. They weren't hurt, they weren't confused, they were relieved. Relieved that you were no longer a mirror reflecting their selfishness. You realized this. The more available you were, the more invisible you became. So you made a choice. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but out of survival. You didn't leave them. You just chose to return to yourself. What happens to them when you disappear? At first, they barely notice. They're used to your presence, your instant replies, your willingness to always say yes. So when you go quiet, they don't panic. They assume it's a phase that you'll be back like always. But then the silence grows. Days pass, weeks, and still no call from you. No message, no effort. Now it's different. Now it's unsettling. Because for the first time, they feel the weight of your absence. They start replaying old conversations, reading into your silence, telling themselves, maybe they're just busy, maybe they're mad at me, maybe I went too far. That's when discomfort sets in. See, people don't reflect when you're constantly available. They only reflect when you're gone. Your absence becomes a mirror. It forces them to see who they were when you were around, the taking, the ignoring, the taking for granted. And some people, they hate what they see. Others, They deny it. They'll blame you. You changed, you think you're better now. Because admitting their behavior was the problem requires a level of self-awareness most people run from. So instead, they create a new version of you in their mind, one that left them for no reason, one that became cold and distant, one that must be the villain. It's easier than facing the truth, but you've already faced the truth, and that truth gave you peace. The peace that comes from finally seeing who's real, and who only liked the version of you that didn't know your worth. Don't seek respect. Command it. Respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you radiate. The world doesn't respect begging, it respects boundaries. Let this be clear. You will never be respected by those who benefit from your lack of self-respect. The moment you stop over-explaining yourself, the moment you stop saying yes when you mean no, the moment you stop shrinking so others can feel tall, that's when respect begins. Not loud, not flashy, just solid, cold, undeniable presence. Respect comes when people know you won't tolerate nonsense. You can leave at any moment. You don't need anyone to feel whole. You become dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because you no longer beg to be understood. You walk into rooms with silence and certainty, and suddenly, people adjust their tone. They fix their posture. They think twice before speaking to you. You don't chase validation. You carry it. And those who once laughed at you now lower their voice, because they realize you no longer need their approval to breathe. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. You didn't become cold, you became clear. And in a world full of noise and neediness, clarity is power. Carl Jung, How to Detect Who's Quietly Destroying You. Carl Jung didn't just study psychology, he dove into the human soul. He believed every person carries a shadow, the part of themselves they refuse to face. And when someone hasn't made peace with their own darkness, they begin to project it onto others. That's when destruction happens. Quietly, subtly, emotionally. It's not always screaming and violence. Sometimes it's a friend who laughs when you're serious, a partner who gaslights you when you express pain, a parent who calls you selfish for setting boundaries. These are shadow attacks, not from evil people, but from people who refuse to meet themselves. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that. How many times have you stayed in toxic spaces because you thought you deserved it? How often did you question yourself when it was someone else projecting their chaos onto you? The person quietly destroying you isn't always the loud one. It's often the one who smiles the most, praises you in public, but chips away at your confidence when no one's looking. It's the friend who jokes too much at your expense, the sibling who competes with every move you make, the partner who forgets your feelings every time. These people haven't integrated their shadows, and so they become subtle destroyers. But once you become aware, you gain back the power, not to fight, not to change them, but to step out of their storm and build your own sky. الفصل السابع قواعد الحياة التي لا يخبرك بها أحد. Chapter 7. The Rules of Life. No one tells you, they never taught you this in school. They taught you how to multiply numbers, but not how to divide your energy. They taught you how to write essays, but not how to rewrite your story. So here's what life had to teach you the hard way. 1. Not everyone deserves access to you. Just because someone is nice doesn't mean they're safe. Just because they're family doesn't mean they won't harm you. Learn to filter your space, not from hate, but from imbalance. 2. Closure is a lie. Most people won't apologize. Most endings won't be explained. Learn to give yourself the closure you were waiting for. 3. You don't have to be positive all the time. Fake positivity is emotional suppression. You're allowed to be angry, to cry, to feel lost. That's not weakness. That's processing. 4. Confidence is quiet. Insecurity is loud. Stop trying to prove your worth. The people who need proof are often the ones who will never value it. 5. Healing isn't about going back. It's about moving forward differently. You don't need to be who you were before the pain. You just need to become someone wiser after it. 6. People grow apart. Let them. You're not meant to hold every hand forever. Some people were lessons, some were warnings, some were mirrors, and some were just noise. 7. Being alone doesn't mean you're behind. Sometimes solitude is evolution. The caterpillar doesn't grow wings in a crowd. It grows in darkness, alone. And when it emerges, no one remembers the silence, only the flight. Becoming unbreakable, how to stand when everyone falls. Everyone talks about strength until they're tested. You see, real strength isn't built in comfort. It's built in silence, in heartbreak, in betrayal. It's built the moment you're crying alone in your car and you still go to work. The moment you're stabbed by someone you loved and you still choose peace over revenge. The moment the world misunderstands you and you stay kind anyway. That's what makes you unbreakable. Not the loud victories, but the quiet wars no one sees. They don't see the nights you couldn't sleep but still showed up the next morning. They don't know how many times you stayed silent just to protect someone else's dignity. And they'll never understand the weight you carry because you carry it so well. But let me tell you this, just because you carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. And just because you never broke doesn't mean it didn't hurt. The goal is not to be a robot. The goal is to feel and still rise. Because real power, it's not control, it's resilience. The ability to feel everything and still keep going. That's how you become unbreakable. Not because you're numb, but because you've trained your soul to bend, not shatter. And when others fall apart, you become the anchor. You don't need applause. Your strength is not performance. It's sacred. It's silent. And it's yours. Your silence terrifies them. Here's how to use it as a weapon. Silence is misunderstood. Weak minds think it's absence. Strong minds know it's dominance. When you go silent, people panic. Not because they miss you, but because they can't read you anymore. And people fear what they can't predict. See, most are addicted to reaction. They push you, test you, bait you, hoping you'll explode, explain, justify. But when you stay calm, when you say nothing, when your face becomes unreadable, you become uncontrollable. Silence is the art of making people drown in their own noise. You don't attack. You don't chase. You just exist like a storm behind glass. And the mystery of your quiet speaks louder than their shouting ever will. Learn this. The person who speaks less in the room often holds the most power. Not because they're weak, but because they don't need to prove anything. So when they say, "Why aren't you responding? Why are you so cold?" smile, and let the silence answer for you. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of everything they fear. Boundaries, self-respect, detachment. You're not ignoring them, you're protecting your power. Step out of the illusion and start living for real. You were never really living. You were surviving. You existed in rooms where your voice didn't matter. You laughed when you wanted to cry. You stayed when your soul begged to leave. You called it loyalty. You called it love. But it was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being judged. Fear of starting over. But now something shifted. You're no longer chasing validation. You're no longer asking for permission to exist. You woke up. And in that awakening, you saw it all. The games, the masks, the manipulation dressed as concern. You stepped out of the illusion. Life isn't about being liked. It's about being free. Free to say no without guilt. Free to walk away without a breakdown. Free to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to fit into spaces that shrink you. You're no longer here to perform. You're here to live. Real living starts when you stop pretending, when you stop explaining, when you stop settling. You are not who hurt you. You are not who left you. You are who survived. You are who rebuilt. And now you are who walks forward with nothing to prove and everything to become. This is not the end. This is your beginning. Welcome home. If this journey awakened something inside you, subscribe. Because the world may stay loud, but here you'll learn to be silent and powerful.